Welcome back. America's top economic leaders attending the Prolific Growth Summit today. This one-day exclusive conference in Indianapolis brings together business executives, entrepreneurs, investors, and stakeholders in an effort to push forward American innovation. The conference is featuring 6 innovation studios, workshops, and speeches from top business leaders. There's even a pitch competition where the winner could get $5 million in seed funding. My next guest is delivering the keynote speech today. Joining me now is O'Leary Ventures Chairman Kevin O'Leary. Kevin, great to see you. This conference was made for you.
Great to be here. It sure is. We celebrate American entrepreneurship, innovation. You know, I've said this 1,000 times, Maria. Our #1 export's not energy or technology, it's the American dream. And right today, the center of the American dream is right here in Indiana.
Oh, it's funny because we just went to Mike Milken's Center for Advancing the American Dream. A lot of conversation about the American dream and how to get it. Tell me what you're expecting from the conference today.
Well, you know, what really has taken so much to understand since the pandemic is the role of social media in business, particularly in entrepreneurial startups. The idea of acquiring customers using social media, platforms like TikTok and Instagram. If you don't know how to do that now, Maria, you can't really survive. It's customer acquisition cost, CAC, and ROAS, return on ad spend. We're going to talk a lot about that today. How to tell a story, how to describe your product, how to create a community that becomes your advocates, how to get more customers direct at higher margins, and that's why the markets are all-time highs. Large S&P 500 companies have figured out social media. Their margins are up almost 15% since pre-pandemic. We got to teach that to the startups now.
Well, look, you mentioned TikTok. The president saved TikTok for a 4th time now. As this deal to divest its U.S. operations is underway and the talks continue with China. The U.S.-based version of the app will be majority American-owned, with ByteDance holding less than 20% of the stock. The president is set to sign an executive order this week to nail down the deal, and tech giant Oracle is leading the oversight, algorithm, and the security of the U.S. version, with Silver Lake as a major investor. Kevin, are you comfortable with this, that this is going to be American and we won't have data going to China?
This is all on Larry Ellison's shoulders now. He is going to be caretaker, if you want to call it that, of the data packs coming off that server, the one in Paris, Texas, and those in Virginia. I think he'll do it well. I think people will be confident. And I think the upside of nailing the messaging and getting the staffers of the China Hawks in the Senate on board with this plan is that the people that have not gone on TikTok, because we have 172 million on the platform now, I think could go up 30%. Maria, if you knew with certainty your data was safe, staying on American servers, and she can't see it or anybody in China gets access to it, you probably download the app again. That's the whole point.
So what does, do we know, I'm going to ask Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this, but what does ByteDance have access to then, since it's 20% holder of the stock?
Well, they're not going to have access to the data in the same way they do now. They're not going to be able to use TikTok as a propaganda machine anymore. It can't be spyware. Ellison will rip all that out of the code, as he's instructed to, or face an $805 billion fine, which has been written into the law. The key is interpreting the law as set forward by Congress and upheld by the Supreme Court. And that law was written by the staffers of these senators. So they're not stupid. They understand it. So Ellison's team will have to go in, sit down with them and say, here's our proposal. They'll approve it. There'll be a transition period. The key is to keep the platform fruitful for the entrepreneurs. There's about 7 million of them, generating somewhere between $15 and $17 billion. I call them the Shark Tank Nation. They use the platform to create businesses, and that's what Trump is trying to keep going. But China's going to have to give this up as a propaganda weapon.
Yeah.
And they're willing to do it because it's a trade-off. They're getting a deal from Trump, and Trump was successful in getting Xi to become a seller. He wasn't, 48 hours ago, he wasn't a seller. Now he is.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Should we trust it, Kenny?
I want to say that we want to trust it, Kevin, right? I do say that we do want to trust it, but I'm still skeptical, right? I'm just skeptical of where this data is going, who's got control of it, and who shows what. And there's a whole generation of people that don't seem to care. I tend to be in that generation that, I'll remain a little skeptical.
Well, we'll see.
Well, I like that attitude because you're a user. We want to win over on this platform.
Right.
I mean, I'm an advocate for it because all my businesses use it. It's the most, it's actually the lowest cost of customer acquisition in America. It's going to be the prize. The number of people interested in this cap table, including me, everybody wants a piece of TikTok. It's going to become a powerful American television network with an already proven advertising model.
Right.
You don't see that very often. It only comes around every few generations. So here we go.
So let me move on to the mayoral race. Now less than 2 months away. A new Suffolk University City View poll shows Democrat socialist Zoran Mamdani still with a commanding lead in this race, 45%. Andrew Cuomo is at 25% in that poll. Republican Curtis Sliwa is at 9%, and incumbent Mayor Eric Adams is at 8%. Kevin, I know you've got plans to have dinner with everybody. You recently had dinner with Mayor Adams. You plan to meet with every candidate here. What have you learned, and what is this process that you're doing?
Well, first of all, Maria, it's New York. No other place like it. And there's 7 weeks to the election. And in New York, poo-poo happens all the time. You just don't know what's going to happen until it's done. So last night, in my sort of tour of the colonies, as I call it, I had dinner with Adams. We went out to Rayo's, a classic New York location. Part of doing this is to see how voters and constituents react to the politician. They loved him. In a classic New York location, everybody wanted a selfie. They applauded him when he came in. And the thing I found so interesting about him, I bet you it was his third dinner last night to meet with me, he had a salad with no dressing on it. Now that's discipline. That's total discipline. And he was very cordial, and I can report as of last night, which is the #1 issue on this candidate, he is not planning on dropping out of the race. So let the games begin.
Well, he's not planning on dropping out of the race. I mean, let's do the math, Ashley. He's not planning on dropping out of the race. Curtis Sliwa says he's not planning on dropping out of the race. Andrew Cuomo's certainly not going to drop out of the race. So what happens? Mamdani wins.
Going to win. Yep. And Kevin and I have talked about this a lot. I mean, it's going to be a disaster for New York City. But I don't know what. I mean, the egos here are just, too big. Kevin, you couldn't talk him into it?
That was not the tone of the meeting, and that certainly wasn't the vibe he was picking up from all of those constituents that just loved him. I mean, imagine his dilemma, because, ratings really matter, obviously, and when you see these people supporting him, I can understand he's having a hard time saying, yeah, I'm going to drop out. I don't think I have a chance of winning. You don't know what's going to happen, particularly in New York. Now, look, it looks grim, I get it. And this would be very bad for one of the world's largest capitals of capital, but it ain't over yet. And I think my next stop is with Cuomo, and we'll talk to him about it too. But I feel by meeting these people, Adams is pro-business. I can report that back too. He's not changing much in policy. He believes you've got to have return for investors to invest in low-cost housing. Right. No one's going to put their dough up, Maria. If rental rates are capped, there'll be no return.
All right.
So I think it's kind of the messaging like we're talking about now.
So do you think Adams has any shot of winning?
Having spent that time with him just hours ago. Thank you, ladies, for putting me at this. I'm not going to call the. I'm not going to call the race. I'm going to let. I'm going to let it. Listen, the important thing is, I want people to understand. He's not dropping out. Okay, so everybody get over it.
Okay, he's not dropping out. We're going to let it play out.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Mayor Adams.
He's done better. He did better on the border toward the end of his term. Kevin, thank you. Have a great time at that conference, Kevin O'Leary. And don't miss Charles Payne's live coverage from the Prolific Growth Summit today. You'll probably see more of Kevin there. That begins at 2 p.m. Eastern on Charles's show.